Song Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show for songwriting nerds or those who worry about rhyme schemes. Send all your worries and comments to feedback@songtalk.ca. I'm Phil Emery, and with me today is the occasional Song Talk Radio co-host and co-host of the Song Talk Radio meetups that take place both in Toronto and online via Zoom, a fine songwriter and a very fine vocalist, Sherry Jacoby. How you doing today, Sherry?
Good, thank you. Happy to be here.
Always great to have you back on the show. And tonight, our guest is singer-songwriter Governor Tom. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you, Phil.
Here are a couple of bits of news before we get started into the main show. We are still accepting entries into our Songwriting Challenge 2023. And that challenge is to write a song in a mode you are unfamiliar with. Now, technically, major and minor are modes, but, let's try something a bit more exotic out there. You can get some more information on the challenge at our site, songtalk.ca, and there's a link at the top of the page for more information on the challenge and even some resources. Really good, some videos on explaining about modes. Tom, are you much of a modes person? I know it's still kind of a new thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I understand modes. I have a basic understanding of the concept of modes, and I like modes. I like modes a lot. I don't have the theory brain to fully just utilize them at the drop of a hat. My son has been playing guitar for about 7 years, and we had a conversation one day where he said, it's important for him to know how everything is put together and how everything works. So he's really studied that and gotten deep into that, and he understands modes, and he's even created this little sort of app that in the end will sort of recognize modes, but he's got it all in there. And I'm actually kind of just the opposite. If I'm playing in a mode, it's by instinct and by feel as opposed to by design.
Right. Has he published that app? That sounds amazing. I could actually use that.
No, it is. I know, right? I'm so happy for him. But I don't know where it's at right now. He showed it to me a few months ago, but I was very impressed there then, and I don't know where it's at right now.
Because I'm actually working on a song that I think might be in a mode, but I'm not sure. One song I thought was in mode was actually just in minor. So I think might be in a mode, but I don't really know. So tell him to finish off that app. He could make hundreds of dollars.
He may very well. There's some apps I use religiously on, to help me out. I tend to write by feel. I write, a melody. It's not necessarily the final melody, but a melody will come with some words, or maybe I'll start with some chord progressions, and then as the melody develops, I'll just feel my way into the chords. I don't really, I'm not kind of like a label type brain. I don't, right. And so it's often, very often, embarrassingly often that then I'll take those songs and I'll go out and I'll sing them in public and I'll find what key works best for performance. And then I'll know and then I'll sit down with my app, with my reverse chord finder, and I'll finally know what my chords are and what song I'm singing in. And then I'll write them down so I can share it with other musicians. And honestly, that is my process.
That's a good process. How about you, Sherry? Are you much of a modes person?
I'm not. No, I have a lot more to learn in that, I think. So I'm also much more by feeling. My vocal melody often being accompanied by pretty simple chord progressions. So yeah, I definitely want to dive more into that. I had the experience of trying to put my music into sheet music, and that was so difficult, trying to figure out the rhythms of what I'm actually singing. And yeah, so it's really like a backwards process sometimes. I think it can be much more instinctive and intuitive than theoretical. Yeah.
As me. And we are all, of course, saddened by the death of guitarist and songwriter for the band, as well as a great solo artist, Robbie Robertson, at the age of 80. Seems so young in so many ways. He was a high school dropout, had a one-man melting pot, part Jewish, part Mohawk, and part Cayuga. And, of course, the band backed people like Bob Dylan and others, and was a huge part of the rock explosion of the late 60s and the 70s. Sherry, are you much of a Robbie Robertson fan?
Not yet, but I will take a listen more. Yeah, I have some catching up to do with the older classical.
And how about you, Tom?
Yep, definitely. Listened to the band my whole life. I'm blanking on his name. As I said, I'm really bad with names. But the lead singer for the band, I saw him tour before Queen found Adam. Terrible names. They did a tour with the lead singer of the band.
Levon Helm?
No.
No?
No, who was it? Maybe I have it wrong.
Levon Helm, and then there was Robbie Robertson and some other people I must admit I'm not as familiar with.
Alrighty. I must have it wrong.
Well, definitely, you can listen to any of the stuff of the band and some classic songs and huge hits. And if you were around in the 70s, you heard the band many, many times because they had many, many hits. All right, now on to our guest. Governor Tom is a singer-songwriter whose indie style blends folk, blues, and jazz with pathos and humor. Great to have you on the show, Tom.
Thank you.
So now it seems like a lot of your music is very lyric-driven. So is it safe to assume that you're a lyrics-first writer?
In most instances, yeah. It's funny, Sherry, you mentioned, using pretty simple chords and kind of feeling your way into the music. And I find that, sometimes I'll find a chord progression that I get so excited about, and it's really complex, and it'll switch up and switch back. And then I'll write lyrics for it and write on top of it. And then at the end of the day, it's just not that great. I mean, it's fine, but it doesn't really oftentimes really compare to those songs that literally play the same, 3 or 4 chords just over and over and over again. But yeah, I'm definitely a lyrics first kind of guy. And then I found it. I'll definitely, it'll be lyrics, and it'll be like some version of the melody, and then I'll find the chords, and then I'll figure out the rhythms, and then I'll write some, musical motifs that are in my head, and I'll usually write the bass line, and then I'll write, some of the accents for either horn or keys. And then I'll come back to the melody, and once I sort of know where all those other parts are fitting in, then I will start to really get into the melody, which is always hard because, then you've got that initial version of the melody kind of locked into your brain. And it takes time. It really takes time to reprogram that. But I think it's worth it. Just little things like on the song that we're going to play today on Public Eye, we're going to hear a line that says, if the truth be told, the truth is sold as mystery. And so, and then the melody goes up and down. It's like, if the truth be told, the truth is sold as mystery. And when I originally wrote it, that was not the melodic line, but, in coming to the final version of the melody, it was important to really know, as I was an actor once upon a time. And so I go back to my Shakespeare analysis days and, and what words to stress and which to, to subordinate. So in that instance, you have, if the truth be told, the truth, we've already heard truth. So we already know that we're talking about truth. So the second time around, that can be the low note, as opposed to, if the truth be told, the truth, we've already heard truth. So if the truth be told, the truth is sold, and then you hear sold. But if you go up again on that second truth, then sold is not going to deliver as much. So if the truth be told, the truth is sold as. So you get the sold, whereas if the truth be told, the truth is sold as, then it just kind of becomes this kind of skippy thing. And sold doesn't really land. And it's a super subtle thing, and maybe I'm just fooling myself. I often do. But I think those kind of really intricate analyses and digging into the melody line ultimately, pays off because people, it takes people a while to really, really lock into lyrics. It's like you hear the music, you hear the rhythm, and then eventually you kind of you kind of get the melody. And then, I mean, there's some songs now where, 40 years later, I'm still just figuring out what they're actually singing. I think we all do that.
Oh, yeah. And then you find out that what you thought they were singing was wrong. That's what I love.
Yep.
Exactly. Totally. I know, like hysterically wrong.
Yeah, and you're going, that's a crappy line. Why are they singing that?
Yeah. So I really try to put the work in so that it makes it just so that it just, it kind of helps the listener to get a better intake of the words and thus the story on just by refining those melodies that way. That's part of my process. That's what the show's about. So here I am talking about.
Yeah, no, it's a really cool approach. When you're describing how each part fits together, it's almost like a puzzle. That's how I find it, right? You get like a little clue of what the song should be, and then put it all together, and then you might need to come back to that first piece if it doesn't fit again with pieces you added later. So it's a cool way to look at it.
It is, yeah. And then like even on Public Eye, I found that I got into a headspace when I was actually recording, when I finally said, okay, enough scratch tracks with the lyrics. I'm going to commit. And, I got into the booth, and then you have to just let all that go, and you have to just sing the song. And sometimes all those really intricate lyric changes are right there serving you. And sometimes you blow it. Sometimes you're like, oh, I missed that one. But then you just have to trust. And you just have to trust that the connection to the delivery of material at that point is more important than those intricacies. So it evolves then even an additional layer in that final recorded performance, I find.
Can you talk about? You mentioned something about as an actor, and you were doing your word work. Can you explain that to the listeners? Because no one's actually talked about that on the show. That's really fascinating.
It really is. And, I did a lot of Shakespeare, and I did more Moliere. I just seemed to be cast more in a lot of Moliere. But he wrote in French. So a lot of the stuff that I had performed and that's, available for English-speaking actors has been translated, of course. But it's very rhythmic. There's Iambic Pentameter, and, we're all familiar with Shakespeare's sonnets and how, there's 14 beats, or there's 14 lines, and then iambic is just like the word I am. It's like da 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 da. And I can't remember the other word. It's been too long, but it just is the opposite. Da 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 da. But in Shakespeare, it's almost like speaking a foreign language. So as an actor, you almost have to map out which words to stress, because my brain, and I think most modern brains, you don't have that organic, intrinsic, of the time connection to the language and the rhythms. So you have to really know which words to stress. Otherwise the rhythm takes over, and then the audience goes to sleep, because it just becomes this sort of rhythmic thing. So, and Shakespeare was very clever. It's like, and so was Moliere. It's like you have to work in those rhythms so that, it's like they write, they were brilliant men. And so there's observing the form, and then there's subjugating the form, and then there's attacking the form. And I think great writers do all of the above. And so sometimes when you find a real meaning in a piece of writing like that, it's not necessarily in exactly the rhythm. You have to, and it's intentional, because it's like the writer will break that rhythm because that verb or that, noun something is what really needs to be stressed. And so like Sherry said, it's a puzzle, and that's a puzzle too. Writing is a puzzle. I always say writing is creating a puzzle. And when I was an actor, I would say acting is solving a puzzle. And I think in music, it's the same. I think writing music is you're kind of creating a puzzle for, at least for the other musicians, because when you hand them those, the sheet music and stuff, you've got a tempo and you've got some black dots and some words, and then the rest is up for interpretation. So you really, it is kind of about solving that puzzle. And I think it's, for me anyway, well, it depends. I mean, I've worked with some amazing instrumentalists, and I think they probably think similarly, maybe not so much in terms of language, but in terms of, the language of the music and the stress and the tone, and changing tones and changing stress and changing, portamentos and like dropping off or rounding up at the end of phrases. I think, that's a form of interpretation. And one of my favorite composers is Debussy, because you can listen to his work, performed by 6 different orchestras, and they'll all sound different, because that composer had a different feel for the music, and every musician playing had a different feel for it. Whereas, you play, some music is, I guess all music is up for interpretation, but some more so than others.
Would you do the same word work on modern texts as an actor, or?
I mean, similarly, like, well, if necessary, if it's really a complex text, but it's, yeah, I mean, but no, I mean, generally, it's funny. I mean, acting is a wide, like in film, some of the most successful actors basically just mumble their lines, and they don't really project very much at all.
Yes.
It's really like all you get. And you're not getting much more, melody than a modern rap song, in a lot of modern film acting. And it works because, everything's amplified and your face is just big on a screen. And, if you were, going full out vocally, then it would kind of impair, I think, in a lot of ways. So to answer your question, I think you do have to do, a lot of that same work. But it's just much more subtle. And I think it's just much more, I think in that regard, it's really about finding what's going to open the door for you as a living, breathing vessel of interpretation for that writing. Whatever's going to open that door for you to enter, that reality that the writer created. And then beyond that, it's just, if you're connected, then it's truth, and truth trumps everything, so it trumps all the technique and everything else. But it can be a useful tool. I just don't think, to answer your question, no, I don't think it's as necessary in modern writing as it is because again, I just think a different part of our brain kicks in. It's almost like another language when you hear, more older verbiage. And, I'm reading a book right now. I bought a bunch of Pulitzer Prize novels just because I was sort of starved for fiction. And I'm reading So Big by Edna Ferber right now. And, just in that, it's like, and I just finished Nickel Boys, which was written a few years ago. So, the difference from that to Edna Ferber and just the rhythm of the language and the word use and it all has such subtle meaning. And, I know as I'm reading this Ferber novel that I'm missing. I know that there's this, like, just the way the words are put together, there's sort of, wings and, get it moments that as a modern, thinking in a modern vernacular and, you're just not as much in tune with. You got to kind of slow it down and hope for the best. So as a performer, if you do approach older writing like that, you have to consider that. Whereas contemporary writing, it's, you could probably get by without really even putting much thought into it.
Fascinating stuff. Well, yeah, sorry, Jay, Sherry?
Oh, yeah, no, it's fascinating to apply it. I really think, you're talking about like bringing the words to life on different levels, right? We have the way that we speak or vocalize it, and then music adds another layer. And yeah, it's so cool to think of how the same lyrics, the same song can be interpreted in so many ways.
No, go ahead.
It's true. I mean, like cover songs, I try to shy away from covers because it's so hard. It's so hard to sing, something that's, that's so locked into people's heads, some other way. I think Diana Krall is probably one of the modern masters of singing covers. She's so available to making it her own. And, I think I think partly that's because she accompanies herself and she's able to, it's not like if she were not accompanying herself, she would probably have to, she would be feeling whatever that pure truth and inspiration and her interpretation of that lyric was, but then she would be dealing with another mind interpreting the music. And I think the fact that she can find her way, on the keys and vocally at the same time allows her to really, I'm always blown away by her covers.
Yeah, that is great stuff. There's actually a great resource on the Song Talk site. Janice Ho, who was our multimedia person way back when we used to do a live radio show, and we had someone tweeting during the show. She wrote a great article on basically writing down your lyrics and then doing, I think, an emotional map of the lyrics, and that would kind of guide you in your vocal delivery. And it was great because I'm a music first and lyrics absolutely last writer. So all my songs are it's ba 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 tanda gabadoo all the way through until basically at the very end, and then I write lyrics. So it was interesting looking at a song from that, and that was a brilliant thing, and something I should maybe think about a bit more, about looking at the words a bit more, and thinking about stresses more as opposed to just doing them.
When you write like that, Phil, I'm curious. Are you doing that solo, or are you actually sort of, have you got some rhythm and a couple players with you while you're buying and figuring out your song, or is that more of a solo activity?
I usually wrote in bands, and I would basically always start off with just kind of da-ba-da, because it takes me. I'm a very slow lyric writer, like really slow. That was sort of the only way I could actually get the songs moving. And I continue that as I work on my own. And, now I just do stuff in my studio. And, with the magic of computers, you can get pretty close to a band. Not quite the same, certainly not as much fun. But
that's for sure.
No, that's for sure. Let's talk about Public Eye. So what was the process for this song?
I think it started with just a couple of really. I think I saw. There's that F shape where the sixth string is open, and I just saw a lot of guitar players playing that chord, and I was like, "What's that chord?" So I played it, and I was like, "God, that's a beautiful chord." I couldn't even tell you what it is right now. Somebody could, maybe you can, but and then I was like, "Okay, so what goes with that chord?" And I felt around a little bit, and I moved up to E minor. So that one I figured out. But and then I just was playing those back and forth, and I was like, God, that's beautiful. And I developed this strumming pattern, and I wish I could say what the inspiration was for that. I mean, I know what the song's about, but I mean, why I wrote a song about a young starlet who is the message of the song is, it's big. It's about the girl, but it's also about society, and it's about the relation of society and the girl, and and what stardom means. It can be so random, and it can be so lucky or unlucky, and so to see a human personality have to deal with that sometimes on such a huge level. And you add to that equation, the youth, and then you add on top of that the expectations of being a woman and what that means for our society in terms of a product. And then you add all that together, and then you have the added element of, I think it's a good thing. I think we need stars. I think, it's interesting, like these royal families that have traditions. It's like, there's almost like this human need for what, not, I'm not saying role model, but just there's almost like a need for somebody to be in the spotlight. It's like, if no one was in the spotlight, then I don't know what it just seems like, it seems like somehow a human need. And so this song, Public Eye, also just talks about how that need can be, exploited, and what the effects of that exploitation can have on a very young person. And so that's all that came up by listening to those beautiful chords. There was something so bittersweet and something so kind of sentimental and raw about those chords. Again, Sherry, as we said at the beginning, it's like I really approach composing entirely from a feeling base. And then and then the words kind of, come on top of that most of the time.
Yeah,
all right.
That's cool that you mentioned bittersweet for the chords, because that's also the feeling I got from the lyrics. It matches so well, like the ideal of fame versus the tension of it not maybe going as you wanted, or the sadness of it, the scrutiny of it. So there's definitely that bittersweet tension, I think.
Well, let's take a listen to it, and then we'll talk a bit more.
She's a question mark you make up any answer. Type it up, put her picture on the screen. If the truth be told, the truth is sold as mystery. Once it's fluffed and full, hyped beyond extreme. In the public eye, you don't wear an umbrella. It's a world of unimagined scrutiny. And it's true, her defense rests in equal measure of a worthless, vindictive mockery. If you ask her what it's like, you'll leave her crying. Empty promise of a life that's like a dream. Still, she won't know what to say, so please stop trying. It only makes her lose her way. She's just 19. She's just 19. She's no right to shame, regret, or indignation. The attention's what she begs for, craves the fame. Solid platinum on her wall since she was 16. So ungrateful for it all, her pain's a game. Get a picture of her angriest expression. If her waistline catches sunlight on the sand, they pay millions for a personal indiscretion, captured in these top-notch lenses of Japan. Of Japan. Of Japan. Lenses of guy, you don't wear an umbrella. It's a world of unimagined scrutiny. And it's true, her defense rests in equal measure of a worthless, vindictive mockery. So when you see her at that check stand growing older, when you comment on the ugly price of fame, on that crazy, trashy bleach out turning 30, rest assured she's got just herself to blame. Self to blame. Self to blame. Just herself to blame.
Really neat.
Great song.
What'd you think, Sherry?
Yeah, it really feels like poetry, and the lyrics being a very big focus of it, and this kind of nostalgic classical vibe with the melody. It really paints a picture. In my head, I really love the first line. She's a question mark. You make up any answer. I think that, just pulls you in with this really cool, mysterious line and captures the theme of the song. I'm curious about the ending, the way that the lyrics end, that she's just got herself to blame. What was the inspiration behind that ending, and how did you come upon that?
Well, it's I don't know if it's not ironic. It's accusatory, basically. Because it shifts. The person, it shifts from she and now, and sometimes it's you. So at the end, it's So when you see her at the check stand growing older, when you comment on the ugly price of fame, on that crazy trashy speech out turning 30, rest assured she's got just herself to blame. But really, that's not the truth, because there you are, laughing and scorning, this girl. And it's really interesting because I said just a few moments ago that I could not remember, what my inspiration was to write the song, and I just remembered it listening to it with you two. And it's the line at the end of the chorus where, and it's true, her defense rests in equal measure of a worthless, vindictive mockery. And I just got so tired. I got so tired of seeing these young girls be so exploited for defending themselves. Like, they would do these outrageous acts, like cut off all their hair, or, get into some scrape or some ridiculousness. And yet, to me, it was, these, what's the word? These rags, what are the check stand newspapers, and the 24-hour news cycle that have to fill it up with celebrity gossip and all of that. It's like, and, they have all the power. They have that entire media power machine, against a 17-year-old girl or a 19-year-old girl. And what's she going to do? I mean, really, what is her defense? Mm-hmm. And so I would have to say at the end of the day, I think I wrote this song in defense of these very young, very vulnerable, very talented young women. And that's what the song's about.
Yeah, it's great. It really felt almost, I know it's not quite an apt comparison, but it made me think of, some of the beat poets of, because you have the sort of jazz background and sort of a bit of talk singing throughout, which is really cool. And yeah, it is so it's such a lyric forward song versus something that has, just, a few words and then lots of repetition and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's quite a neat little song, and it's also an interesting subject because there's a lot I've noticed in the last, 10 years that most of songs are about me. Not me personally, but it's from me. It's I and me, what you have done with me. And in comparison to some of the older classic songs, like from the Great American Songbook, or even in the 70s, where people, Midnight Train to Georgia, where it's someone talking about someone else, or talking about a situation, or and it's kind of nice to not have something that's just about me, and that it's sort of a bigger subject. It's an interesting thing to take on, and I have to admit, I don't know if it's something that I could take on, but it's interesting and kind of nice to hear someone else do that. And yeah, your rhymes are really always tight, Sunlight in the Sand, Top-Notch Lenses of Japan, which I thought was kind of cool. Scrutiny, mockery, the ABA rhyme schemes, which I think always work. It's a classic, but it works, and it works for works for Sting, so it seems to be doing. Although I think he actually is more of an AA guy, but
yeah, he is.
So, Tom, what's your plan on this for this song? What are you going to be doing with it?
Well, I'm finishing up one more track, and then I'm putting this into an EP with 4 of the tracks that I recorded with the same musicians, all 5 of these tracks, for the most part, the rhythm and horn, and key. Yeah, it bounces around a little bit, but and then I don't know. It's certainly not a hit song, but I do think it. I think it says something that you don't hear, a lot about, and I think so. I'm probably going to be singing this tonight, but I have a ton of songs. I have so much music, and these are just the first 5 that I've been able to finally get recorded and get released. And I've got 4 songs that are love songs, and so I've got an EP I'm going to put out called Complicated Love Songs, because they're not they're not me song. One of them is, but Yeah, I think one of the biggest revelations I've had, and what I hear the most, as I just heard from you, Phil, is that, it's really poetry. I really write poetry, and then I think I use music as a vehicle to get it out there, because nobody's going to open a poetry book these days.
That's true.
So I know that I'm a writer first. I've always been a writer first. So, it's kind of a surprising tickle to me too, to find out at my age, at this point in my life, that I'm something of a poet. Because I've written plays and screenplays and for ages, and so I finally got to the point where I'd picked up my guitar again 15 years ago, and all that writing just instantly went into songwriting. So I've got a big catalog of compositions that I'm slowly, turning into sound recordings. And so I'm sharing my writing. This is the way for me to do it at this point in time, is what I'm doing with it. So
That is awesome. Well, I think I hear the band. I think that means the band wants to go home. So that's all the time we have here on Song Talk Radio. Tom, where can people go to get more of you?
GovernorTomMusic.com is the best place to go. And then if you're on any of the socials, it might be under the music of Tom Wood, which is my real name, because using Governor gets me into a lot of trouble with the censorship algorithms that Facebook employs and stuff.
Really?
But yeah, so Governor Tom Music. Yeah, anything I try to do on Facebook gets rejected because of the word governor, because I can't even talk about that. Let's not talk about that.
Okay, that's true.
GovernorTomMusic.com.
All right. Don't forget, we love to hear from you on any subject, even about using Governor in your name. So send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca. You can find the links to all the products, books, and whatnot we talk about here on the show on the resources page at songtalk.ca/resources. And no matter if you're in Toronto or around the world, why not join us for the next Song Talk Radio Songwriters Meetup? It happens online via Zoom and locally in Toronto and soon in St. John's, Newfoundland. It's where you can network with other songwriters and get insightful feedback on your works in progress from other songwriters. It's free to join and free to attend. Stop by the website at songtalk.ca for the link and the info. Tom, what is your favorite social media channel that you're using these days?
What is my favorite what?
Social media channel.
I have to say I'm a big X fan these days, because X and Rumble, because they're the only ones that don't censor, that don't violate people's First Amendment rights. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sherry, where can we get more of you?
SherryJacoby.com or SherryJacoby Music on Instagram and Facebook.
Can you spell the last for the audience?
My last name?
Well, it's Sherry.
Yes, SherryJacoby.
Great. And you can get more of Neil at neilmodi.com and more of me at philemery.ca. And stop by the website at songtalk.ca to browse past shows, find those great resources we talked about, and find out how you could be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, everyone, and keep on writing. Good night.